You know, on our farm, we started to raise quite a bit of continuous corn. This is going back 10, 12 years ago because we had a couple pieces of ground that didn't have a lot of organic matter, and I said the best way to build that is we want to plant more continuous corn, reduce tillage, and all those things we just talked about a few minutes ago. But the downside, and what our dad told us is, well, this is all going to look good until you get some dry year, and then in the dry year, continuous corn is going to kill you because continuous corn is going to suck more moisture out than a corn-soybean rotation or corn-wheat rotation.
Well, you can say that, but I think the biggest challenge for most guys trying to raise continuous corn is fertilizer. It's just trying to get that fertility program right. And the problem that we run into is we have all this residue out there that's 60 parts carbon to 1 part nitrogen. We need to get a bunch more nitrogen out there to try and help break down some of that residue. We need that ratio of carbon to nitrogen to be down in the 12 or 13 to 1. So we have to put on a little bit extra nitrogen. We're talking about 50 pounds per acre more than we normally would in a corn on soybean rotation.
Yep, and maybe even a little bit more than that. The other thing is the timing of when this is going to be done. So in the fall, a lot of times, if let's say you had a corn crop that barely had enough nitrogen to make the yield it made, then your stalks, your residue that's left at the end of the season doesn't have a lot of nitrogen. You might want to go out and spray some liquid nitrogen on to help break those stalks down. Whatever you can do to get less organic material on top of the ground in the seed bed is probably going to help, because that's the other big thing when it comes to planting continuous corn. If you don't have a good seed bed, you know you're not going to have a good stand, which means you can't have great yield. It's not like soybeans where you can just throw a bunch of seeds out there and for the most part they're going to grow, they're going to compensate.
They'll self-thin a little bit.
Right.
Yeah, that's true.
Yep.
Corn is going to just, here it is. It's one stalk, it's straight up. It's not going to bush out and fill in a 3-foot gap like a soybean plant.
Yeah, so we used to raise some continuous corn in no-till. And it was fine, except for the soil didn't warm up very well in the spring. So then what we went to is strip till and found the ground warmed up very nicely in the spring, but still we had some problems with longer stalks and hair-pinning residue. So now what we've gone to is chopping corn heads. When we have chopping corn heads out there, all the stalk pieces are really pretty small. They can be moved easily with the trash whippers, and we have much better stands.
Well, that's nice, but the other challenge is just getting those row cleaners to push the residue off to the side enough that our gauge wheels can slip through without bouncing up and down over residue. That's where we end up with some unevenness in planting depth, and we still see that occasionally on our farm. We're getting better at this, but you want to make sure you push that residue off to the side. Because yes, that chopping corn head's nice. We can manage those small chunks of residue, but we are going to have to push them out of the way a little bit, because there are going to be a few that blow over that strip that we built last fall. There'll be a few pieces that blow over that by the springtime. So we'll clear that away at planting time, make sure our gauge wheels are running nice and smooth on soil. That way we have a good, even planting depth, and we'll have much more successful corn.
Well, once again, with continuous corn, we do get a little concerned because it might be a little drier, and so in a dry year you could have some issues potentially, but if you build up your organic matter, you know you're going to have more water holding capacity and pick the right varieties that will withstand continuous corn conditions, and then of course put a little more nitrogen on.
Well, we didn't get to talk much about weeds there, Brian, but we will during our Weed of the Week segment coming up next.